On today's show, Ryan Leonard didn't look like a rookie. He looked like a future top line Washington Capitals star.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan HOLMI. I've covered the Capitals for the past 4 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. In this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the Capitals playing like contenders. Quite an about face from what we saw from this team to start the season. In first place in the Metro, in first place in the Eastern Conference. How are they getting it done? A bit later, we'll talk about first place, but don't get too comfortable as the Capitals are in a good spot. But what have we learned around the NHL? That it wasn't long ago the Capitals were in last place and are now in first place. It could go the other way again. The Capitals have got to keep their mind on the prize. But just to get it going here, before I even do a breakdown of the game, segment number 1, and he is most deserving, is Ryan Leonard and the it factor. It appears that the player that the Capitals drafted in the 8th round, first round, that he's arrived, right? First round pick with a lot of hope that he was going to come here and change the Capitals. And, to be clear here, he joined the Capitals at, the end of last season and didn't pop off the page. Just had that empty net goal. And the feeling was, well, where is this Ryan Leonard, that we had hoped was going to be there? Back-to-back 30-goal seasons at Boston College. But what has really cemented him in there? We've seen the swagger building here over the last handful of games or so, but he has arrived and truly has that it factor. So let's dive into that in the first segment of today's show. So let's get into that, because this one is one of the nights where you don't ease into things. This was the Ryan Leonard show. And to be clear here, a nice victory all around. I mean, you take a look at it, the final 7-1. And last I checked, the Sharks were in 4th place, much better than we had seen from them in years past. So it's not like they took it to, a truly terrible team. That team has a lot of young talent, Macklin, Celebrini, and the like, but the Capitals found a way to beat that team, and they found a way to beat their netminder. And Ryan Leonard, he was the guy stirring the drink at the offense. And he absolutely erupted with 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists, with a blend of scoring ability, physicality, and edge from a rookie who just turned 20. And that's rare company. That's a performance we haven't seen from a Caps rookie since Nicklas Backstrom in 2008. And the thing of it that hit me the hardest was that Leonard has it. He has the it factor. And I was listening to the post-game interviews, and Charlie Lindgren was talking about it as well. He said the kid has it. And that was kind of the common theme amongst the different players that were interviewed, whether it was Roy or whatever the case, that they feel that this guy has the it, the NHL star factor. Simple, blunt, but dead on. His first goal, that's pure instinct. He slides into space, grabs a rebound off a Matt Roy shot, changes the angle, and buries it. And that's him, not second guessing. That's a guy, I hate to say kid because that's sometimes used as a pejorative, but that is a guy that has arrived, and it's a player that knows what he wants to do. And he just kept getting better. And I think that to a certain extent, he rose to the challenge because he understood, the players on that team and the young talent that is there as well. But quite a game by Ryan Leonard, that is for sure. In his second goal, even better, he comes in on the rush, shakes a defender, and goes backhand under the crossbar. That's the swagger. That's the confidence. That's a player that you can build around. And that's the exciting part, right? That what we're seeing right now is that this is just, I think, kind of the tip of the iceberg, that he is just going to continue to keep getting better and better and better. The Roy one was in the third period. But when you take a look at what he did in this game, it's a clear sign that this guy has arrived. And I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here, but sometimes you see it early, the same way that you saw it in guys like Backstrom, the same way that you saw it in Ovi. When you see a player is more than a prospect, he is a core piece. And, it was a slow build, right? Not every player is a direct line straight up, right? That sometimes you have to get acclimated to the game. What I've seen so far, I think he has arrived. And even Spencer Carbery said it. He said his whole tone post-game was basically, quote, "Yep, this is what we expect. He's ready," unquote. And the results back it up. Caps score 7 goals, absolutely steamroll San Jose, and Leonard's fingerprints are on almost all of it. So to just recount the goals that were scored in this game by Ryan Leonard in the first period, he scores with a wrist shot, with an assist from Trevor Van Riemsdyk and Duhaime. In the second period, the third period, he scores the other goal with Matt Roy chipping in on that one with a backhand shot, just knocking it out of the park. And it's not even just that, it's the sum total of him putting up all the points and just, I don't need any more convincing. I can really see that he has truly arrived. And, when you take a look at it, the way Leonard plays matters because when you take a look at him, he isn't just talent. He plays with edge, attitude, and disruption. That's the exact ingredient this team has been missing. And he likes to get under players' skin. You can recollect, a bunch of times, when he was going up against Vincent Iorio, but also in the game against the Islanders as well, is that he understands the mental game is an important part of his game as well. And I think that he's just really leaning into that. So here's the other part of the night that people outside DC miss. It's not just the points. It's how he plays. He has that physicality and edge, and it's not something that all players have. He's not just fast. He's not just skilled. He's mean, he's competitive, and he gets in your face, but you don't know it. In the post-game pressers, he's always very polite and gives the answers. It's a team victory, shrugs off any, self-praise or anything. And, they've been coached that way, right? That it's all about a team victory. But when you see him out on the ice, when he's shoving different players and just saying things that just truly enrage the opponent, you can tell that he's not always so pleasant and even keel. But when you talk about the case of him bringing that physicality and edge, he gets into mid-game with Sharks defenseman, a name that should sound familiar, like I said, Vincent Iorio, and you could tell there's some fire there. Leonard finishes his hit, doesn't back down, and wins the puck battle. And that's a culture shifting moment, a compete level. It energizes the team. It drags teammates into the fight. And the Capitals were feeding off Ryan Leonard the entire night. And speaking of teammates, like I said, Matt Roy had the quote of the night. He said, "Leonard made some unbelievable plays out there. Good for him. He's fun to play with," unquote. And that's coming from a veteran, a guy that's been there. And, to play with a guy this young, getting it done, that is quite something here. But talking here also what this means for the Caps going forward, having a guy like Ryan Leonard. If this version of Ryan Leonard becomes the norm, he can change the identity and the ceiling of the 25-26 season. We needed more scoring from the forwards. We needed more 5-on-5 scoring. I think that Ryan Leonard has arrived, and if he's going to be the ones leading the charge, you got Tom Wilson in the mix and Alex Ovechkin, these kind of guys as well. But if you see Ryan Leonard really start to catch fire here as well, that could be huge. Because let's zoom out here a little bit, because one game is one game, but this one actually matters for the bigger picture. The Caps have been looking for someone to rise in the scoring depth department. They've been looking for consistency behind Ovechkin, Strome, these kind of guys. They've been looking for energy. They've been looking for pressure on every shift. And suddenly, Leonard steps into that spot, and he looks so natural doing it. My big takeaway is I see him moving up the line combos if he can continue. But if not, if he continues to knock it out where he is, then why try to change something? But especially huge when you consider they beat San Jose without John Carlson. That usually hurts the puck transition game, hurts zone exits, hurts offense flowing through the blue line. But the Caps did not miss a beat. And why is that? In large part because Leonard and the third line drove the offense for stretches. And that's the big thing. This team is riding a tremendous wave of optimism and positivity, and it's something to build on, right? And that is what is ultimately has me excited about where the Capitals are at right now. Ryan Leonard catching fire, finally, a guy that the Capitals were all in on. It's not often that you get a first-round pick and an 8th overall pick, that Ryan Leonard is the real deal. And the good thing for me, he has that it factor, and he has finally arrived. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the Caps playing like contenders, not pretenders. I'll discuss straight ahead. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting from FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. So whether you're a fan of the Commanders, the Ravens, or whatever team in the NFL, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, it got that much more exciting. And live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I want to thank all of you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in the next segment here, we're talking about the game and how things are going so well for this team right now. The Caps have won 6 straight. The momentum is real. The systems are setting and roles are forming. And now, you got this team firing on all cylinders. Like I talked about in the first segment, you got guys like Ryan Leonard catching fire. This could absolutely be the game changer that this team is looking for, catching fire at exactly the right time. Because you start the road trip out west, like I've said, historically has not always gone the best for the Capitals. What do? They take down the Kings. They take down the Sharks. And we got the game on deck on Friday. Hopefully, the Capitals can keep going, as it is the Ducks who are, a better Ducks team than we have seen in the past. But the game, I talked about Ryan Leonard, the marquee event about this podcast. Let's talk about the game itself. And the Caps are playing like real contenders and getting hot at the right time. But the biggest takeaway here is the Caps didn't just beat the Sharks 7-1. They handled them like a team that knows exactly who it is
and what it wants to be. That they're not searching for an identity. That, despite the fact that you had big players for large chunks here that were out of the mix, that the Capitals got hot, missing two key players. And, you think to how much better the Capitals will be once they're back to full strength. Huge. And that's been missing for a long time. Identity, understanding, confidence, and that all comes from winning. And why this is true, Carbery even said after the game that given the travel, the back-to-back, the injuries, the way they showed commitment was, quote, a testament to our identity, unquote. That, it wasn't long ago, and myself included, was like, what is going on with this year's team? Were they going to take a step forward? Were they going to take a step back? And to be clear here, the thoughts were founded, right? They started the season not playing their best hockey, but once they caught fire, they really caught fire. So when you see a guy like Spencer Carbery, head coach, say a testament to our identity, that's coach speak, but this time it actually matched what we saw on the ice. 4 goals in the first period. I'm talking Ovechkin, Milano, Leonard, and Brandon Duhaime all finding twine. And that's just a sign of how this team is firing. They outshot the Sharks 31-24, and they were 1 for 2 on the power play. So again, things are trending. Is it 100%? Didn't say that, but 4 goals in the first period. Wow. I don't think you could script it out any better than that. That's not something a tired team does. That's what the Capitals did. That's not something a team with swagger does. And the Caps had swagger all night. Excuse me, that's something the Capitals do because they have the swagger. And, you take a look at the players that scored, some of it surprising, some not so surprising. Alex Ovechkin scoring, not too surprising. Ryan Leonard, he's already getting there. But Sonny Milano and Brandon Duhaime, both players that have 4 goals on the season each, that is saying something. So when you're getting this depth scoring here, that is what is exciting. And the Caps had that swag all night. Ovi wasn't just showing up. He was setting the pace. He scored twice, notching his 911th career goal. Quite something what Ovi was able to put up and what he keeps doing up as he continues to light it, as he scores in the first and second period. Power play goal, right? You got to love that. Something that this team has struggled with. He first scored at 8:25 into the first. Then he lit the lamp early in the second, a PPG, making it 5-0 and basically putting the fork in the side of the Sharks. They're done. That's not just history. That's a message. That's vintage Ovi. Same predator instincts, same net hunting, same killer instincts that's defined his career, except not a 27-year-old guy anymore. He's getting it done at 40. So the other big takeaway from this game is this wasn't just star power. This was complete team play. Because if you strip everything else away, the score, the travel, the back-to-back, the real story is that everybody had a hand in this thing. Chucky Sideburns, Charlie Lindgren was huge in this game. Darn near had a perfect game. Dmitry Orlov, yes, that Dmitry Orlov scores in this game and ruins the bid for the Sharks. But you take a look at it, again, quite a win, what they were able to do. But you take a look at it, why this is important. This wasn't Ovi had a big night, so we won. Even though he did, and even though he usually does, this was structure, this was layers, and this is, dare I say, modern hockey, that the Capitals have gotten pushed into the modern age. And why do I say that? Because, well, it wasn't so long ago that this team was dubbed as old and slow, with guys like Leonard, with guys like Frank and McMichael. They definitely have a lot more giddy up, shall we say, in their step than they did before. And, you take a look at the way the Capitals forechecked. They were forechecking, rather. They were on San Jose the entire game. And you look at the defensive rotation, the D-core moved the puck, disrupted plays, minimized risk. The penalty kill was strong. Special teams was working, and secondary scoring came in. The depth stepped up. So that's what's encouraging. The other thing in this game that just really had me exciting, if this is the new Caps identity, with Ovi still hungry, the Metro should be worried. Like I said, you take a misstep here or there, and already you're looking down. But the Capitals sitting in a good position right now with 36 points in the first place in Metro, in the first place in the Atlantic. The Lightning, who have also had an about face with 34 points. But, complacency will get you nowhere. In the Metro, Capitals 36, Hurricanes 34, Flyers 33, Devils 33, Penguins 31, Islanders 31, Rangers 30, and Blue Jackets 29. The Blue Jackets, who that Capitals have on deck on Sunday. So don't get comfortable. Don't kick up your feet. You got to keep the work boots on and keep rolling. So that's the identity, right? The most exciting part about this win was the domination of this team and the implications. You don't win 6 straight by mistake in the NHL. You don't put up 7 goals in the second half of a back-to-back, at 3 a.m., body clock time, unless you're building something sustainable. And I feel the pain, right? I watched the game, and it was like around 1 o'clock in the morning. That's why this show is a little bit later. Generally, shows always right after, but these West Coast trips are hard for a guy like me as well, as I have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning for work. In any event, this is the first time I've seen all season the Caps look this well. And okay, this is something real. The buy-in is a visible factor that I saw in this game. You see that the team is buying into Spencer Carbery systems, this season. They did it last season, but for whatever reason, I think that the message got a bit scrambled. The roles are clear. The pace finally matches what Carbery has been preaching the whole time. And having Ovi hit milestones, still scoring, still dangerous at 40, it gives the room confidence. When your legend is still producing and your depth is showing up, that's when you become more than a streak and a flash in the pan. This isn't just a pop-off win. This is the kind of win that builds the buzzword in this episode, swagger. And it's not something that you're going to see on the back of a hockey card or advanced metrics, but it's a thing. The Metro division is tightening. Teams are finding their identity, and the Caps just planted a flag that says, we're not bowing out quietly this year. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the Capitals being in first place, but they shouldn't get too comfortable. Why is that? I'll discuss straight ahead. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college pro teams. So whether you're like me and I want to take it before I go to work or to the gym, that's the perfect thing and the perfect way to start off your day and be the best version of yourself. It actually tastes amazing. My go-to flavor is watermelon, and it's become one of my secret weapons for staying sharp and energized throughout the day. And right now, Drip Drop is offering our listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up before the heat hits and keep your mind and body performing their best with Drip Drop. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube, like the videos, and comment anything down below. In the final segment here, the Capitals in first place. They've planted their flag on the top of the Metro division, but let's not get complacent. Like I've alluded to throughout this episode, is that they're in a good position now. But it wasn't so long ago that this team was in the cellar saying, get us out of here. The power play was horrible. We found out about the Pierre-Luc Dubois injury. It seemed like things were in disarray. But now, at least for now, as I record this, the Capitals are sitting in first place But the margin isn't enormous and the pressure is on. And why does this matter? As of December 3rd, after a 7-1 just trouncing of the Sharks, the Caps sit atop both their division and the conference. And that's a big turnaround, a huge turnaround from earlier in the season. Just 12 games in, they had the fewest standing points in the conference. They've hit a heater, 6 straight wins, 9 wins in their last 10, on pace for 105 points, standing points by year's end, nearly matching last year's 111-point season. But here's the thing here. Their lead isn't safe. And I've talked about why that is because the Metro is getting better. The teams that are right behind them have some games in hand. And it's easy to get comfortable when you're winning. But past seasons have shown that the race and the tougher road trips will test this group. So far, so good, right? On this West Coast trip, winning the first 2. So a great spot to be in, but no reason to assume that they're locked in for the playoffs. Again, it's good now, but you see how things have changed. Offense and depth, the quiet weapon fueling this run. This isn't a one-man show. The Caps' depth and a balanced scoring are driving their recent success. Why I believe that? In the 7-1 win over San Jose, new faces and depth guys stepped up big time. Like I said, Leonard dropped a 4-point game, 2 goals, 2 assists. First rookie this season to hit that mark. Meanwhile, the veteran Alex Ovechkin scored 2 goals, pushing his career goal tally even higher. Secondary players like Duhaime, Roy, all contributing. That it is an offensive firepower coming from a lot of different sources. And you might be saying, why is that huge? Because depth scoring makes the team less reliant on the top lines and more dangerous in different states of the game. 5-on-5, special teams, in garbage time. And when role players and rookies deliver, it creates lineup flexibility and keeps pressure on the opponents who might key in on Ovechkin or the top line. Like I talked about, Wilson, scoring that power play goal a couple games ago, and just the Capitals driving for the net. You saw that in the game against the Sharks. It wasn't just, the Purdy goal, right? That they were just getting in there and doing whatever it took to find the back of the net. Just have the will and muscle it in there. They did that. And if this keeps up, the Caps won't just be contenders. They'll be a dark horse threat. But the trapdoor, weakness lurking if the Caps don't stay sharp, because you can't be complacent. The window for slip-ups is still wide, and the Caps, if they slack up, this top of the East status won't last long. You can only make true proclamations about being top of the Metro in the Eastern Conference in, let's say, February, March, towards the end of the season, when you can, really put some distance between yourself and the teams underneath of you. Right now, every team that I talked about earlier is still within shooting distance. And although they're winning games, some persistent issues remain. Their point percentage isn't elite league-wide, and their other teams have games in hand. Special teams, historically a pain point for some Capitals teams in the past, can derail momentum if they regress. Also, sustaining defensive consistency over a long season is tough. That, PLDO and, Nick Dowd in transition here as well, is that those are the injuries right now, right? And John Carlson, these kind of things. But what lies ahead for the Capitals if there is a major injury to a star player, if Wilson goes down, Logan Thompson, that it can change everything. If you're a fan of the NFL, you know that some teams that were slated for greatness change the outlook. You take a look at the Commanders and the issue with the quarterback there, that definitely changed what people were thinking about the team. Same thing is true for the Capitals and the NHL. You see Ovechkin go down, Wilson, Logan Thompson, Carlson for a long period of time. That could be insurmountable. And the NHL's parity and unpredictability, tight divisions, injury risks, sudden cold streaks, all things that could undermine even a hot start. So here's the facts, and the fans, and maybe more importantly, the team needs to watch. Don't treat leads like they're owned. Every game matters. Depth needs to keep producing. If rookies or secondary scoring dry up, that hurts. We saw that the Capitals are playing that much better now with the likes of Leonard scoring, with the likes of Wilson scoring, Ovechkin heating up compared to where he was to start the season. But that depth needs to keep producing. If rookies or secondary scoring dry up, like I said, that's tough. Defense and special team consistency must hold. They can't only ride the offense. And the defense has been good. Logan Thompson, Charlie Lindgren, and Nat have been a good 1-2 punch. We need to see that because if you remember towards the tail end of last season, that Logan Thompson was not the best version of himself. In the talk of Vezina throughout the season, but slipped. This season, he has been amazing. Charlie has played a really great game here as of late. Those are the things, but everything is fluid. It's in flux, right? And that is what can change in a hurry. Because like I talked about earlier, there's only a handful of points that separate the first place team to the last place team. That everything can change in a hurry. The Capitals need to keep doing what they're doing and not overthinking it. If we can continue to see Ryan Leonard doing what he's doing, I'm talking Chychrun, another player that was hot in there, Tom Wilson, these kind of guys, that this team is built to weather the long NHL season. I don't want to deal too much about what happens if things go wrong. I want to concentrate more on this is what's working, and let's keep doing that. And, not ignoring the negativity, because that's still there. The power play is better than it was, a work in progress. But let's exemplify what is working, put that in a bottle, and let it out in the next game. If they do that, I think success is in the script for the Capitals. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, the Locked On NHL hosts break down every game from now until the end of the season, the Stanley Cup. So check out Locked On NHL and Locked On NHL Game Night, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan HOLMI, and I'll talk to you again next time.